All right, the man you're about to meet is a longtime political ally of Donald Trump. He's been in politics for a very long time in New York State, on the federal level. He's been all over the place. His tweets and communications through the 2016 campaign predicting damaging information related to Hillary Clinton and John Podesta have been the subject of discussions for months. So does Roger Stone believe he is a target of the Mueller investigation? Let's ask former Trump political advisor Roger Stone. He's the author of a new book out tomorrow called Stone's Rules: How to Win at Politics, Business, and Style. Thank you for taking the opportunity.
Great to be here.
We'll talk about the book, although, really, my whole discussion with you is woven in and out of what your different rules are in the book.
There's a lot of books. There's a lot of rules in there that the president ought to read right now.
Yes. Well, we don't know that he's big on digesting information that way, but I'm sure you could pick up the phone and communicate some. Whether it'll listen is a different one. 140 rules. Obvious nod to the old number of characters that were allowed in Twitter. Now it's been extended. Let me ask you something else, just to get some things on the record. The question they set up in the intro there was, do you think you're a target? Have you been contacted directly or through counsel by anybody from the special counsel's team?
I have not. But, for example, you read in the paper, and you reported at MSNBC and CNBC, that Mr. Mueller is probing my dinners with Rick Gates and my meetings with him at the Trump Tower, wants to examine the period in which we worked together in the 80s. There's a couple problems here. First of all, based on my recollection, I have one dinner with him with other people to discuss the makeup of the New York delegation to the Republican National Convention. I have no meetings with him whatsoever in 2016 at Trump Tower. I didn't know him until 2016. He did not work at Black Manafort and Stone in the 80s. He was evidently an intern at a successor firm. So you're
saying the connection's not there. What I don't get is this. How does the special counsel not reach out to you? Just your bizarre coincidences, I'll give you a generous read on that until we get into it, with what was going to happen with WikiLeaks and Guccifer and the emails. How have you not been called in?
Well, first of all, the claim that I knew in advance about either the alleged hacking of the Democratic National Committee, since the DNC never let FBI examine their server, we're not even certain they were hacked. But the idea that I had advanced knowledge is speculation. It's
speculation based on you, though, Roger.
Supposition.
You put it out there.
Yes, and I'm a political animal. But Julian Assange came here at CNN in June of 2016 and said, I've got a treasure trove of documents about Hillary Clinton.
You said you were talking to him, meeting with him. You made this.
No, I actually never said that.
Spot on. Well, you did say to Sam Nunberg, I had dinner last night with Julian Assange.
Which I think I've explained adequately was a joke to get Sam Nunberg off the phone. And I've obviously produced my passport, airline records, customs records.
So that the meeting couldn't have been possible.
Well, I was in Los Angeles, and I think I proved that.
But how about the one that gets you the most? In terms of, and again, look, obviously I'm out of my depth because the special counsel hasn't called you in yet, and this would be a layup, I would think, at least to talk to you about it, is it's coming for Hillary. It's coming for Podesta. And then it came.
Well, first of all, Assange says
right after.
Assange says that he has a treasure trove of devastating documents. He says it in numerous interviews. As far as John Podesta is concerned, my tweet says the Podestas, not apostrophe S, meaning John and Tony, referring to the.
Is that true? I thought it was apostrophe S.
No, but it still says the Podesta.
Put the point. Hold on. So, you read it from.
But the gets removed even in the House Intelligence.
But there is an apostrophe S.
But it refers to multiple people.
Well, you didn't write it that way.
No, but the House Intelligence Committee drops the entirely, as have numerous media organizations. The point being that in April of 2016, the Panama Papers exposed the shady business dealings of John and Tony Podesta, and that is my reference. Nowhere do I predict that John Podesta's emails would be hacked because I have no advance notice.
No, but you did say his time is coming.
Well, because Paul Manafort...
And then it came, by the way.
Yes,
that's the part,
yes,
is that the truth winds up being a foil for you.
All public information. Look, this is an effort to distract from the content of the WikiLeaks disclosures were incredibly embarrassing to the Clinton campaign.
Well, but it's also about tracking who knew what and when and may have been coordinating or encouraging what would be illegal activity.
There is no evidence whatsoever that I had advanced knowledge of the source
content.
Other than
you called it.
That's
2 days before.
Speculation, supposition, a conjecture, but no proof. Where's the proof? There is no proof. Yeah, I followed Assange's Twitter feed very assiduously. I had a Google alert for him. I read every interview he gave. You could foreshadow what he's doing. Just
direct messages with
Guccifer.
How about that?
Which I made available to the House Intelligence Committee 6 weeks after the hacking. So they're ex post facto. You went to law school. How can I be involved in collusion in hacking material after the fact? You need a time machine. It's chronologically impossible. The content of those
you're assuming that
are
point
banal,
of contact.
at least.
Well, banality aside, you're assuming that the timing of it is a full appreciation of what the full context of the relationship was. That would be a case for you to make, if ever asked. Again, the special counsel has
24 words in an exchange on Twitter direct messages,
right,
which is innocuous and happens after the fact. So on the basis of the content, the timing, and the context, there's no evidence.
Why even reach out to somebody like that who was connected
thousands
to
of journalists
potential Russian?
I was covering this. I have to do 5 shows a day for 5 shows a week for.
So it was journalistic curiosity.
You didn't want to know? Of course I want to know. I'm a political animal.
Right, but it seemed like if I were to call the guy and find out what he did and what he wanted to cop to, that's one thing. You seeming to want to encourage and develop some relationship with him is different. Fair point?
I wanted to find out what he knew. It's ironic that we have a movie right now, The Post, praising the Washington Post for publishing the Pentagon Papers, classified information. At the same time, we're criticizing Julian Assange and WikiLeaks for publishing classified information, calling it a crime. You can't have it both ways. Which is it?
I think that's a conversation to be had.
This is what journalists do.
I think that that's a conversation to be had. The WikiLeaks folk get sideways with me from time to time. I'm not exactly sure why. When they made the first dump, my caution to people was, hey, if this has classified information, Pentagon Papers case, Blackmun's decision aside, we don't know what the Espionage Act means in this new era of caching documents and downloading things that may be classified. There haven't been any cases about it. But as we're seeing right now, you never know what the prosecution is going to do, what the government will go after. Yes, journalists feed off leaked information.
That's what they do.
And I say thank God for that.
It's
because
a legitimate rule.
But it takes us to the same point. Truth. What is the truth? Is the truth that you knew what was happening? Is the truth that you were encouraging what was happening? Because exactly what you say, you are a political animal, and you wanted to help your friend. You don't believe those are legitimate questions?
Oh, they're legitimate questions, but I've answered them ad nauseum again and again and again, including under
Except
oath.
from the special counsel.
Well, but under oath in front of the House Intelligence Committee, where my testimony is both complete and entirely.
But they don't have the teeth that the special counsel does. That's why I think it's odd. And Michael Caputo, who obviously you know very well, he says he sits down with them. I'm sure you've heard this from him directly, but that they have a collusion, coordination on their mind. They know a lot about it. Does that make you nervous?
No, because I'm not involved in any collusion, coordination, or conspiracy with the Russians or anyone else. And there's no evidence to the contrary.
So the book, 140 rules. Some of them in there are just, chapter and verse of what we see from the president, and I would argue using to his media advantage. Deny, deny, deny. Attack the people asking you questions. It's one thing for a consultant to give that kind of advice, and you were sought by left and right alike to figure out how to deal with sticky mess. Is that the right way for a president to act? That when you're asked legitimate questions, attack the media, say that they're the enemy of the people? You say in here, one of your rules, the media is not your enemy. To deny everything, to never admit a lie, never clean everything up.
This president has undergone the most vicious fake news assault that I've seen in American politics. What's fake? Well, we can argue with it. For example, Mueller is looking at Stone's dinners with Rick Gates. That's fake. There's one dinner. His meetings with Rick Gates.
Hold on.
That's
Roger.
fake.
The truth of your relationship with Gates may be nothing. All right, that's your supposition. Doesn't mean that the question is fake. It doesn't mean that they're not looking.
No. Let's take Ari Melber, MSNBC.
Very mean.
Stone worked with Gates at Black Manafort and Stone. No, I didn't, because he never worked there. That's fake news.
All right, but that would be, well, first of all, Ari Melber will speak for himself. He's a talented attorney. But Ari's point could be wrong, right? You can be wrong, and it's not a deception and a lie.
He's not a talented attorney.
NBC got a report wrong last week about wiretapping. They corrected it. They were wrong. It's not a lie. It's when you don't correct it, when you enforce a deception, that's a lie.
It's a smear. And it begins with the premise. The Russians hacked the DNC, unproven at best. Guccifer 2.0 is a Russian asset.
The intel community doesn't believe that. You're pointing to the fact that they haven't looked at the server. They believe that they were part of the crime of interference against them.
Our intelligence agencies have been politicized. Who says that Guccifer is a Russian? John Brennan, a guy they caught spying on a Senate committee looking into torture by the CIA? James Clapper, who lied under oath about whether we had a metadata collection program? And Edward Snowden.
So you believe these men are completely incredible?
I believe that they are politicized, and I believe they
You don't think that's dangerous? It's one thing for you to do it as a proxy. I'll give you that. That's the role of a surrogate. But when the president does the same thing, Roger, it doesn't give you a little bit of pause that he attacks the entire FBI, the Justice Department, it's all deep state?
Not
at
all.
The
Not at all.
InfoWars friends that you have, not of a president.
In view of the fact that the president cannot be charged with a crime, according to both Republican and Democrat departments of justice under both Clinton and Nixon, what's the purpose of this investigation?
Truth.
If not, to undo the results of the last election.
Truth is the point.
We have not found any evidence of a crime.
Well, we don't know that. The investigation's not over. 23 people have been indicted. There's plenty of proof of crimes, Roger.
13 of them are Russians who will never come here for trial, but including a caterer, which means Mr. Mueller has indeed indicted a ham sandwich.
No. Well, the rule for an indictment is a low level of legal threshold. We know that. But there's much more there than we've seen in other what is described as political prosecutions. Let me give you a last blow on this. What do you say is the best reason to read Roger Stone's book?
Well, what's interesting to me is when I post the link to buy this book on Google, within hours, they call it spam. When I post an ad to buy it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble, they call it, they reject the ad. This kind of internet censorship is very, very dangerous. It's what we're experiencing at InfoWars. I do a show there.
Who's they, by the way? Who is?
The tech left, the large
tech left?
Yes, indeed. So I do a show, as you do, 5 days a week. It's a lot of work. I can't get my show loaded on YouTube, my InfoWars show, because it's controversial. I'm against censorship.
You know what the problem is with InfoWars. You know what Alex Jones has done in the interest of publicity.
And you're familiar with the First Amendment, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, on that basis, I don't think anybody should
Just because you have the right to say something doesn't mean it's right to say it.
Millions and millions of people are
smearing
watching.
the Newtown people, you can't be on board with that.
I disagree with some of the things he has said, but even he has backed off that. The point is censorship, and we're struggling to stay alive because we can be arbitrarily censored, and that is dangerous.
All right. Roger Stone, thank you for making the case. Your book is Stone's Rules, How to Win at Politics, Business, and Style. Roger Stone. Thank you very much for being here.
Great to be here.
Appreciate it. Allison.
Okay, Chris, let's talk about